Like the cops were trying to break me before the
Yeah.
Royal Commission. I was in the greatest physical danger. I was in fear of my life.
You were physically
assaulted by
yeah.
cops. I just felt so good to see Roger in the dock, you know, and Roger was like glaring at me, that bitch, you know. And it hurts more than anything because it's your family. Like the police, when you go to work, you're trusting on your partner to protect you in your life with a gun. Like, you know, it's a club, it's a family. But then my police family rejected me.
Welcome back to part 2 of my chat with former New South Wales detective and whistleblower Deborah Locke. If you listened to part 1, I think you would have been shocked by what Deborah experienced as a young female cop in the 80s. Well, her life didn't get any simpler after she reported the corruption she'd seen as a young detective. But as you'll find out in part 2, things in fact got a lot worse. I love policing, but there were aspects about what occurred in policing that did bring shame to police forces across the country. Welcome back to part 2 of I Catch Killers. If people have been listening to part 1, they're probably thinking, what is this world we talk of? Or you talk of, I'll blame you.
It was an era.
Yeah.
It was an era. You know, because you were there.
I know. And I think, and the only way I can sort of, you look back at it and come to terms with it, society was changing. It was the wild times, wasn't it?
It was the Wild West.
Yeah, yeah.
And it wasn't like society or the community saw what was going on. This was like a little bubble. Like the jobs, like a closed family. Like what happens and what's seen and what's done. It's not normal.
And look, your journey is a classic, and let's balance it out, is a classic example of why there needs to be accountability in policing, because I think what went wrong with some of the squads you're in, there was no accountability.
Well, they all just closed them down. They closed down the consorters. They closed down the gaming squad. You know, they closed down the surveillance. They closed offices of 60 officers because, you know, they just weren't actually doing anything, or they were the culture there was so bad, and they all got an amnesty and were allowed to just walk and resign and not take their pension. And there was bloody hundreds and hundreds that took that option, which hate me because of that, you know, my guys. But you know, I don't get any Christmas cards.
It's not a popularity contest.
Yeah, who's hated most.
Yeah.
But you know, it's it's bloody ridiculous, isn't it?
But like what they've brought in on the back of the Royal Commission and all the changes, that accountability, but they've got to get the balance right too, because I would get frustrated in homicide that I would joke that my team started doing actual homicide work at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon because of all the admin stuff that they had to do. But I also, in the police and corruption, in my mind, has changed from the days that you talk about, where it was money and everything else that went on, is now people are just not working. Like they're just not doing what they should do.
This is a real shift of this, where they just the population's growing.
Yep.
This is with schools, hospitals,
Yeah.
everything, but with the cops, and they just fob you off. They don't do the work when they should. You hand it to them on a plate, and they're just going.
I don't want to bash police, and there's some good senior police, there's great junior police, and all in the middle. But the culture can be problematic.
Yeah, there's pockets.
Yeah.
Of, where there's still stuff. I've got a website, and people send me stuff, and they'll go, "This station's really off. This is going on. This is going." Yeah. Like, I think I threw myself on my sword. What my family and myself suffered, and I'm going, have things changed?
Yeah.
Was it worth it?
Yep.
What I went through. Should I have just shut my mouth like everyone else?
Yeah.
And just smiled and I could still be there today,
Yeah, you must.
But I couldn't do it.
You must reflect about it, and it must cross your mind sometimes. Well, I could have done that. That would have been easier.
Just
life would have been a lot less pressure, and you'd get piped out, retiring after a stellar 40-year career, and everyone would like you.
Yeah.
But no, you couldn't do that, could you?
No.
But you can look at yourself in the mirror
Yeah.
and go, okay, well, you've done something, something that was the right thing to do. And I think I'd like to think there's more. Well, I say there's in the police the fact that I thought it was easier for people coming in. I navigated, I survived through it. I could have got through it. But I felt more comfortable for people joining the police after the Royal Commission had gone through, because I felt sorry for people, this knowing what potentially they could confront. And there's pockets, but if they ended up in the wrong area. And I felt more comfortable recommending people to join the police, people that asked me after the Royal Commission, because I knew that they weren't going to have all these moral dilemmas and issues that you were confronted with and that during the time that we joined the police.
Yeah, the world changed. And with that Royal Commission, it was groundbreaking.
It came as a shock, and there was an arrogance going round when it was in, like the old school of thinking they got nothing. Everyone will be staunch, and look how staunch they were.
They all stick together.
They all roll.
Yeah, and I've seen whole officers, and they've sat there and they'll get there and they'll rewrite their duty book to get the right phrase in on a certain day. That this is what happened. We weren't actually over here. Like, the old duty book. And the old duty book helped me because I wrote stuff.
It's a funny system, the duty book, and explaining to people what the duty book is about. For any detective, you've got to keep a duty book, which is basically a diary of what time you start work, who you spoke to. And it helps you more times than harms you in if you're doing the right thing when you go to court. I spoke to this person, blah, blah, blah. But I think it was your book, or it might have been one of the interviews I've heard you say, is that you're documenting all the shit that you were seeing in the duty book, and the senior officer has to check the duty books, which is basically a tick and flick because you just have not got time to read everything that someone says.
And I was going, they were doing this, they were doing that.
And so you've got your supervisor ticking it and signing off on it. Yeah,
and signing off, date and timing it. And I'd feel sick every time he did it.
Yeah.
And if he just read what I'd written,
all hell with
he'd go, what's this? You're saying I'm a corrupt bastard?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a bit deadly. Like, that could have got me a good bashing.
Well, okay, let's get back to we got you out of the gotcha cars. You didn't. The gotcha cars,
they never got anyone.
Despite the well-meaning police minister, didn't get anyone.
No one.
Okay. Well, let's be fair, one person, but he just kicked the window out.
Oh, he kicked the door. Like, there was little tiny little rusty bolts that'd fall out.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we've got to try things. You don't know if they're going to work until you try them.
Gotcha.
Anyway. You've come to terms with you've got a drinking problem at this stage. Understandable. I picked up in the book that you were going to, what's the not Alcoholics Anonymous, you were going to
Al-Anon
for
Oren and John, for my parents.
Right. And then you've been going there thinking you're pretty good. I'm going to help my parents and understand what's going on. Yeah. And someone pulled you aside and said, "Hey, stupid, you're in the wrong meeting. You should be next door. You're an alcoholic too." Is that basically, is that how it played out?
It was.
And I shouldn't be laughing.
It was a very sad day for me. Yeah. What happened was, I went to this counsellor and she said, "Look, you need to go to Al-Anon. Your parents aren't normal." And I'm going, "Oh, aren't they?" And they used to tell me, you can't get married. You've got to stay here forever and look after us.
This is your parents.
They'd be drinking meth and they'd point to other old families in the district and go, "This kid stayed and looked, And she goes, "If you ever have a baby, I'll get it by its feet and smash its head against a brick wall." And she was charming. Yeah. She was charming. Yeah. And I wasn't allowed to call her mum. In primary school, people would go, "Who's Oren and John?" And I'd go, "They're my parents." And back in those days, they were going, "What?"
Basically, your drinking buddies.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And they were saying to me,
"Yeah,
you got to sit on the veranda and drink with us. Like, this is it."
How dare you break a family tradition?
Yeah. We're all dying here together. And so I started going to Al-Anon. I went to one meeting and I drove for an hour and a half. I went to Mossman and there was all these old girls in twin sets and pearls. And I'm going, if this is recovery, like, stab me now. Like, I'm sitting there going, my life's not bad enough. Roger wants to kill me, Now I'm here. And anyway, they said to me, "Look, next week, come back and bring up some milk and put the chairs out." Because the AA people used to, it used to always be in school. The original meetings used to be in pubs, but I guess that never worked well. And so they moved it to school halls and church halls and that. So the AA would be there, and then the poor suffering wives would be here.
Yeah.
You know, and rarely would you get a bloke whose wife was alcoholic. In those days, it was all men.
Yeah.
So it was like the cops. It was a boys' club.
Yeah.
They'd all be smoking, and you know, you couldn't see the person up the front sharing their sad story because of the cigarette smoke. You know, and it was just. Yeah. So I'm there, and I'm bringing the milk, and I'm going, these poor bastards need milk every week, you know. And I didn't know they'd made me secretary of the group, you know. So I'm there, and anyway. I'm going, well, if you had my sad childhood, you'd drink too, you know, and these bastards, I've got to stay pissed because my life's so horrible. Anyway, this old girl gets me, she's about 80, and she's frog marched me, grabbed me by the shoulders, frog marched me in the other room, and she goes, you're in the wrong room. You're in the wrong room. You're an alcoholic. I can't listen to you. I can't put up with you anymore. Yeah. Get in here. You've got to get sober. And I'm going, So Aaron and John were very upset about me joining AA. Yeah. And I didn't want to join AA, and I'm sitting in meetings, you know, and I drank in the cross, and I'd go to meetings in the cross and be people I'd locked up. And I'm trying to get sober. And it was just awful. And they've gone, look, if you keep going to those meetings and talking about us, we're going to kill ourselves. Yeah. So, you know, and I'm going, and I've had enough Al-Anon. I'm going, if you need to do that, you go and do that, you know. And John's chased me out to the hedge with the car, and he's going, I don't want to kill myself. And I'm going, well, you know, she's going to make me do it. And I'm going, if you got to do it, you know. Yeah. And so they did it for my 26th birthday. It was like a stuff you thing. So, you know,
They did what for your 26th birthday?
Well, basically killed themselves. Like it was like a... You know, like I had to make a choice between getting sober and having AA and having a life.
Oh, right, okay, yeah. I've read it but I didn't realise that was around your 26th birthday.
Yeah, that was my present. And I wanted to stay in the cops. I wanted to get married. I wanted to have kids. I wanted to have a life. Yeah. My life was shit in Glenorrhy. You know, third generation alcoholic in a small country town.
Glorie's out the back of, I lived at Dural for a while.
Oh, yeah.
I know, it's out the back.
Only half of Glenorrhy had water when I was growing up.
Yeah.
You know, most of them were on tank water. It was one shop. It was
small little town, long way out. It was. It might be very nice now. I don't know. Let's not upset
I've still got
the people
friends out there, you know.
Let's not accept
all right, you know.
people of Glenorrhy.
Yeah, that's great. It's very flash now, you know. But back then, it was the backwoods, you know. Yeah. And I was going to die there, you know. Yeah. And
so Irene and John, they died close together, didn't they?
Oh, it was a couple of days apart. Like what I did, I got this free trip to Fiji. I'm about to go to Fiji, and she rings me and she says, "Now, if you don't come home, right now we're going to be dead. You got to take us to Hornsby Hospital." And then what they'd done is stop eating, stop taking their blood pressure pills, drinking metho. It was a suicide pact. So I drove them through the Galston Gorge, got them to Hornsby Hospital, sat there for about 12 hours. And over the years, I'd put them in there lots of times. And this was back when there was a medical system and I could put them in there to dry out a bit and have a break. Now, you can't get a bed. You can have a stroke and they'll leave you sitting in a chair all night. Yeah. You know, you can't even get a bed. And this doctor kept saying, I'm not taking them. I'm going, you got to take them. And they both died. Like they both went in there and died within a day, you know. But they were teaching me a lesson. You know, but I made a choice, and you know, if I don't pick up a drink, on the 27th of March, I'll have 33 years up of continual sobriety. Oh. It took me 4.5 years to get a year. It took me. I had a few busts, and I'd have a one night bust, and same thing would always happen. I'd get very drunk, and something bad had happened, and I'd go, "This is so bad, I'm going to."
And you had a lot of shit happening, so there would have been that temptation. But you kept up your commitment with AA, and became. I
went to a meeting last night.
Okay, so you just stayed focused on that.
That was my commitment to me. Yeah. And I don't think I would have survived all the harassment and bullying and what went on.
Well, tell us what happened when you went to the fraud squad, because give a sense of, because I know a detective's office and a squad office, how uncomfortable they can make it for people if they choose to. What day one, you turn up, this is a new you, you've given up drinking, you want to be a good working detective. You've rolled yourself out there. You've gone in Mick's
going, don't go out there. Yeah. It's dangerous.
And what happened when you hit the fraud squad?
It was like the gaming squad. There was like about 60 blokes or 40 blokes. I don't know. It was a big office with lots of men, and there was one woman.
Yep.
And so there was two single blokes. So I ended up with a relationship. I got pregnant. And this is where the pregnancy discrimination happened. Well, they're going, well, you've got to resign now.
Yeah.
The dinosaurs are going, you've got to resign. So that was uncomfortable. I had Kimball Cook come up to me and go, you know all about police corruption. John Hatton's running around looking to start a Woodrow. John Hatton had been trying for 20 years.
Yeah.
And it was just a balance of Parliament.
So Kim Cook introduced you to John Hatton.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
He didn't get involved. He'd had the Maloo matter and that.
Yeah.
But he sort of put me under the bus and went, Debbie knows where all the skeletons are.
Yeah.
And I just, the autism came out and I went, yeah, there's a few bastards I can name.
You've got Hatton looking for people that can give him affidavits or statements about
the only one.
corruption. You gave him multiple statements. And you were the only one, but you were actually travelling around the state looking for other cops, and you'd go,
Not one person would do it.
Yeah.
Not one.
And that was for the fear that they had, or just the
fear.
disruption?
They had wives and mortgages, or they were scared they were going to die.
Yeah.
They'd seen what had happened to Drury when he'd spoken up, and said no to Roger.
Yeah.
And people were scared of dying. And Hatton's going, I'm going to go to Parliament with just yours. And people were going, oh, she's a drunken slut, basically.
Yeah.
But they were arguing, and yet they'd had all that film. They had all the film to prove that everything I said was true. But Hatton had to go with just my stat decks. But I was the only one that said, there's corruption. There's current corruption in the New South Wales Police Force. And he went there with that. And even when I was getting interviewed, they're going, she's a drunken slut. And Urquhart was going, well, is she sober? Yeah. Is it true what she's saying? Yeah. And he's going, well, why are we arguing all this?
That's the way that they can attack. And when I say they, I'm talking generally in the police. Like, you would have been an easy one to tarnish the reputation, and that could be enough to break a lot of people. You're a drunken slut. You've done this. You've slept with all these people that they can just pluck out of the air.
Yeah.
And how do you defend yourself? But they don't go at a bloke. They would go at a bloke differently if that's but it's easy.
Oh, they tried the hard. They used to sit off my house, and I'd be in an AA meeting, and they'd be standing up the back of the room. Like, the cops were trying to break me before the Royal Commission. I was in the greatest physical danger before Hatton went to Parliament. Like, when he went to Parliament House and got the Wood Royal Commission, that's when I felt safe. I was in fear of my life. Up until that time, and after. But
well, didn't your boss, and I'm not sure, you let me know if you can mention the person, but turn up at your bus stop at one time or when something?
Look, there was that much harassment.
Yeah.
It was bloody ridiculous, and being stood over and yelled at and slapped, and it was just, no one should have to put up with what I copped for years because I was honest.
You were physically
assaulted by cops.
Yeah.
Yep. So, nuts. Absolutely nuts. How I was treated, and just ostracised.
And tell us about when you get ostracised in that environment, because it can be
And it hurts more than anything because it's your family. Like, the police, when you go to work, you're trusting on your partner to protect you in your life. With a gun, it's a club, it's a family, and I was pushed out. Like, my biological family rejected me.
Yeah.
And especially because I stopped drinking and I joined the cops.
Yeah.
But then my police family rejected me.
Mm.
So in one lifetime, that's a lot for a person to have to endure. And now I have a severely disabled son who I'm caring for on my own. And that's a hard journey,
Oh, it's extremely hard journey. And full credit to you. You can sit here, have a laugh and a smile on your face with all that you've been through. But I know when you talk about that police family, I went from, I thought people might go, but you got charged. She's talking about corruption. I stand by what I did. I'm not ashamed of what I did. I was actually doing police work, which is a novel idea.
Yeah.
But the police family turning on you.
Oh,
I thought
they're vicious.
I thought I had friends that rock solid in the brotherhood. We're the cops, and people, and I have got some good friends in the police, and the ones that supported me, only a small group that had the courage to support me when I was being alienated by the organisation. they all got victimised and
Yes,
harassed, and
yes.
things
To make
happened.
an example.
Yeah. Don't support
don't.
support him, and so that's on what you went through is on steroids compared to what I went through. So I can only imagine how difficult it was for you.
Yeah,
So,
it was horrible. People just turned their back. And,
yeah.
You know, because they're scared they're going to get the same treatment. They're going to get tarred with the same brush.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's, you know, it's.
Well, I had people that supported me. Anyone that openly supported me got a disadvantage because of their support, and like the rumours and reputations that can be spread. I was also subject to that. I was apparently the baddest man in town when they caught me for recording a conversation on the listening device. I get calls from ABC reporters when it broke in the media that we've been told by police sources this is the tip of the iceberg. This is they're going to get you for so many things. Everyone's in fear of their life because of you, and blah blah blah. And I just sort of just shook my head, and that was police releasing that to the media. So I bit back, and they pulled their head in. But it just disgusted me watching when you're going against the tide. How
they
hard,
all get in line.
Hard it can be. So what you went through, and my era when I had hit my hurdle was a lot softer and weaker than back in your time. So I can only imagine what you were going through.
Yeah. I was in fear of my life.
Yeah.
For years.
You've given evidence this, and you've been widely recognised as a person that was the genesis for the Royal Commission. Yep. Giving credit to Hatton as well, was it Morgan Ogg? Because even in the media thing, the police have control. Like if you go against the police, you don't get the story.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so they have the control there. So you did make it.
And Arthur King is a wonderful man.
Yeah. So the Royal Commission, it made a difference. Like I saw the difference.
Oh, the job changed.
Made in the police. What's your take on what the results of the Royal Commission were?
I'm sorry that they didn't take seriously like the advisory committee that I was on. Or that they look at themselves seriously, and I think, but the culture definitely changed. I mean, while I was there, it was a time when there was going from no mobile phones to no mobile files and computer, and so everything changed a lot. Like it's changed for the better. There's more women. I think women have improved the environment, the culture 100%. A lot more. I think society's changed a lot. They expect a lot more.
Yes,
from police, more answerable, and people are, willing to speak up more.
Yeah,
even if it's anonymously in through the internet.
Yeah,
they're more answerable.
But it has changed, and
it has changed for the better. But everything's changed for the better. Like things have society has improves or goes, but how it was had to stop. It was just out of control. The boys were out of control. Like it was ridiculous how the crooks were basically running the circus in some places. Like people were jumping to Roger, jumping to Lenny McPherson, Louis Bayer. He was holding court everywhere, and you had your Abe Saffron and your Frank Hakim with the gaming stuff, and it was.
Yeah, and I agree. People ask how do I think about it, because I was one of the few people that was working in major crime detectives prior, during, and after the Royal Commission. So I've seen the changes. Some things for the good. Some I didn't like. There was who was a deputy commissioner came out and said all detectives are a disgrace and we all should be sent back to uniform and stuff like that. And that pissed me off. I made a point in my career always pushing that detectives do not wear uniforms, and because they came up with all these ideas that we can just put detectives back in uniform. It doesn't work. And I did that out of respect for the good police. There were some police. We're talking about our era. Imagine going before it, trying to be a good person in that.
Back before us, there was the tow truck rackets, and there was the window rackets where they were smashing the windows of shops at night to get the paybacks from the glaziers, you know.
Yeah.
So there was always been, I mean, you go right back, and the original New South Wales police were convicts,
Yeah.
you know, they were the rum corps.
Yeah.
So there's been a slow progression, but I think with the Wood Royal Commission, a lot of the bad apples, and they were saying I was the bad apple because I'd spoken out. I was the one.
Yeah.
But the bad ones got the amnesty and they got to leave, and they just resigned, and they because there was so many, there was so much, and they went, we can't do this, and they said we're going to give you all an amnesty to walk. Yeah. If you know, I think that helped clean up the cops a lot too in New South Wales.
Cut their losses
and they were lucky to leave than get charged. You know. Yeah. And there was quite a few that committed suicide.
Yeah, it was a horrible.
It was a horrible time.
It was a horrible time, and I wonder how did that sort of play on you too, because there was.
People said to me, "You'll cost people their families, their lives."
It became very dramatic, and
I copped a lot of shit.
I wanted to ask about what's his name, Glenn McNamara too.
Oh, Glenn.
Because talk about like he made a stand and. About fighting against corruption and all that, and was a spokesperson.
I supported him at the cross.
Sharing a stage with you about fighting corruption.
He did. They said, look, he's doing a book. Come and support him down the cross. We've got a photo in the paper, you know, his arm around me. And that was an interesting night. But Glenn was more...
And just to let our listeners or viewers in on it, we shouldn't be laughing, but Glenn McNamara, the pillar of integrity, was the former cop that got locked up with Roger Rogerson for the murder of Gow.
Yeah, Jamie Gow.
It's horrible murder. And he's in prison
for
now.
Life.
With that.
I used to go down and watch him at court. Yeah. And I'd wave, hi Glenn, hi Roger. You know, and they'd just look at me, you know.
Oh, when they were charged with murder.
When they were Supreme Court with that. And just, I just felt so good to see Roger in the dock, you know. And Roger was glaring at me, that bitch, you know. And I was going to write a book, and Duncan McNabb was there doing a book. And he's a good bloke, and he knocks out a book every year, you know. Yeah. And I sort of, but the pleasure I got, just seeing some, because I used to always go, there's no karma, there's no justice. Why has Roger done all the, and there's a lot of stuff Roger did and got away with. And I'd go, why is Roger, you know, untouchable, you know? Yeah. And he was doing his private inquiry agent. Him and Glenn were doing it. And I did the happy dance in the lounge room when it came on TV and he'd been locked up. And I'm dancing around the lounge room and people are looking at me and I'm just going, finally. Yeah. You know, and this is the modern technology. Like in the old days, they could do shit. They could kill people, and you know
that was
literally.
The thing. It was a lot easier, wasn't it? It was a lot easier.
Yeah, and he was Roger, and everyone was just.
And then Roger, the old dinosaur, had not caught up with technology. That
well, he had the gunpowder all over him, and it was like a video in court because it showed him driving up and turning up, and Jamie Gow, they'd been over, I think it was Crime Commission, someone else was looking at the people that had supplied the drugs. Yeah. And that's how they came on to Roger. And they all got excited like it's Roger, you know. Yeah. And they're at this little bloody rental unit. Yeah. And 3 of them walked in and only 2 walked out. And they're carrying poor little Jamie, who's about 19, just a little surfboard Asian kid in a surfboard bag. And they're staggering. And Roger, you can see Roger, he's limping, he's that old. Yeah. You know,
he got the hips
gone, knees are gone, everything's gone, and they're carrying the thing, and they've gone, oh my God, we've got them for kidnapping. Oh, we're so happy, and you got the crime mob, and you've got the bloody homicide mob, and then they go, the body pops up, and they've got the video of them at Glenn's units at Cronulla, and they're stepping over the body and drinking beers, and you know they've had to get a hoist to get the body into the boat, and because they couldn't even carry the body up into the boat, and they've gone down there and got the body and dropped the body out. Yeah. Like in his old movie, in Blue Murder, you got to use chains, and like these guys use rope, and with the tide it just wiped through. Next thing you know, his little white sneakers are floating up, and his little body's floating up on the ocean, and Roger's gone. He's gone for it's murder. They're fighting over who's going to arrest Roger and Glenn for murder, and then they both turn on each other and blame each for the shooting.
Well, doesn't it show the character of the people that the so-called tough guys, and I saw blokes that had reputations that never roll, staunch and all that, and then they rolled when the corruption stuff came in. There's some bizarre part of me, or it's not bizarre, I think it's understandable. I have more respect for crooks that say, hey, I'm a crook. This is a code I live by, and I'm not going to talk to cops. I can understand it. I mightn't agree with it, but I understand their moral compass. But the cops that are the corrupt cops, the hypocrisy of it, and then hiding behind the badge and the gun, I really have an issue with that.
Yeah, but Glenn wasn't honest. I've got a few Glenn stories, but prior to that,
don't wreck his reputation.
Yeah. But and it's like.
So when he was, the champion of, exposing police corruption. And talking about that, was he talking to you like as an equal, going, yes, Deb,
terrible.
we had to stand up. I stood up. You've stood up.
Oh no, it was more. I've been a victim and I've been harassed. That was his.
Oh right, yeah.
That was his platform. But, but Glenn was always interesting. Was in interesting places, and. He was always going to get in trouble hanging out. I just think Roger couldn't stop. Like, he was a cowboy. Yeah. And Glenn, to be with him and doing the private inquiries, they put some guy in the boot of the car just before that, and he nearly died. And they'd driven back.
Well, that was Roger had the charisma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And could play piano.
Yeah.
He was in the geriatric section playing piano
in the jail. But like everyone that worked with him said, he was charismatic. But a couple of, without naming names, of people that I consider genuine, straight, tough guy cops have said he was he's a physical pussy. He would talk around, talk as a tough guy. He shoots people, but he couldn't hold his hands up to defend his life. But he had that reputation.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's it. That's how people bowed to him. Like, that's what got me. The cops were all wanting to be Roger's mate, and they'd all want to sit around at the Chinese table. He liked Chinese, so there's a lot of meals at Chinese restaurants.
I saw there was a scene from the Underbelly, Golden Mile, with the Chinese restaurant. I think I recognised the Chinese restaurant.
Well, the cops were all wearing gold rings, and they're admiring their gold rings because there was a Chinese guy. There's a couple of used car sales guys there, but they'd obviously.
Why is it always car salesmen? As a young detective, I don't know the names, but I always have memories of, just coming for a drink with a bloke. What's he do? Oh, he's a car salesman.
Well, it's a good way to launder money, isn't it? But this was like this Chinese guy. His jewelry shop had been broken into, and so all the jewelry had gone, but the cops seemed to be wearing a bit of it.
Wearing the jewelry.
But they were celebrating. They were having a celebratory dinner.
Yeah.
But it was just ridiculous. It was just so out there.
Yeah.
The partying.
Made no effort to hide it. And, well, it was part of the culture. Like, remember when you started North Sydney? So you would have had it. You had to do the bread run, which was picking up the bread from the bakery, which was...
Oh, well, we were beer. We were 6th Division. We'd fill up the paddy wagon with the grog for Christmas.
Yeah, well, that was...
what rank you were, how many cartons of beer you
got. Going round to...
McDonald's?
Licensed premises, and it was, do you want to make a donation to the Christmas party? Yeah. And cartons of beer in the back of the car.
But that's how... society was back then.
It was, and that's why...
It was like putting beer out for the garbos, but we got we got paddy wagons.
That's right, and it was just sort of a little bit of a creep from that. I felt uncomfortable with that, and I don't know if that was a reflection of the straighty 180 attitude I had towards it, but it was humiliated me walking into the bakery and walking out with your 10 loaves of bread to take back to the police station. And the McDonald's on night shift didn't help either.
Free McDonald's. It was,
Here, we haven't sold this. We'll drop it off. And you're sitting there at 2 o'clock in the morning. Oh, yes.
But it was a different era.
It was a different era.
But there was a lot of dark shit going on, much worse than that behind them. I mean, that was, there was bad stuff that went on. And the pedophiles. What really... Besides the broken anything and the fingers prints, I was sitting with this very, very senior cop, and I was pissed, and he was pissed, and he said, "What's the worst thing you ever done?" And I was sort of going, And then he took money off pedophiles, And that's when I've sobered up very quickly, and I'm going, but you've got kids. And he
Yeah.
goes, yeah, but I know who they are.
Yeah.
So his kids were safe.
So
And pedophiles have always been my pet hate.
yeah.
And
I think that should be everyone's pet hate. And yeah, we've had people who have been victims of stuff that went on at the cross, and that's
the Dolly Dunn stuff.
Yeah, you can't. There's no way you can justify that. And
but they were taking money from all different people, but taking money from pedophiles, it was just that's the lowest of the low.
I normally ask people that have had careers in the policing, would they recommend policing? Now,
for a girl,
I give about. But before I ask that, let me ask this. Having said that, let me say this: what was it that attracted you to becoming a detective and policing? So I'm asking you that first, and I'll ask you whether you would recommend it.
Well, it was interesting because, like with Underbelly, it was the Golden Mile, the series that I did, and I sold my book rights for that.
Yep.
It was John Ibrahim, Kim Hollingsworth, and myself. And Kim came from a police family. Her father, her uncles were police and that. And she ended up in the cross as a prostitute.
Yep.
And her sisters. And I came from a very different family, rough family. And I did the opposite and rebelled against my family too. And I ended up in the cops. And so, it's a different sort of life. I think it's a great life. I loved being a cop. I wanted to be a cop. I wanted to do the right thing.
People, it could have been.
It's fun.
I
it's
was
fun
fortunate
and great.
As a relatively young detective in homicide, working with a team, and I'm just going, wow.
Yeah.
I get paid for this.
But it's an adrenaline rush, and you got the lights and the sirens, and you're doing good stuff, and you're making people's lives better, and you're saving the day. And you don't know what you're going to do every day you walk in the door. I loved being a cop. I did not want to not be. And I was begging them at the end. They had me there bloody photocopying, and I'm going, please fix the problem.
Yeah, let me get
and let me do my job.
Mm.
And they're just going, no, it's easier to put out the spot fires. Yeah. And that broke my heart. You know, they just go around and I was the problem. Yeah. And I'm going, but sort Roger. Yeah. And they just went, it's easier. It's easier to break you. Yeah. And as a detective, sit you down and humiliate you in headquarters at a desk. Yeah. Where people can come up and ask you to photocopy for them if they need it.
What would you recommend if someone, a young person, whether it's male or female, is listening to this podcast, would you recommend policing as a career?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, I would. Because it's very character building. It's a journey. If you can survive it, I'd say never let anyone own you. Never take a dollar. Never. Just enjoy. Be safe. Try and survive it. Stay alive. Yeah. Well, it's a wonderful family, the family of Blue. But when you get ostracized, when you get kicked out of the family, it's a kick in the guts. It really is. It's bloody horrible.
And I've heard a person I respect say that the only thing you can hang on to is your integrity, and if you give your integrity away,
you're gone.
You're gone.
You're gone. And I've seen people sell them. Yeah. They're sold for a bloody $20. Yeah, yeah. And it's sad. And they're cowards. Yeah. They're cowards. You've got to have a strong backbone, you know, to be able to take the hits on all levels.
Yeah. Yeah, very true. Your book, Watching the Detectives.
Yeah, it's coming out on audio very soon, so stay tuned for that. It's better than having to read it.
You could have told me that before I read it.
But, sorry, the guy's halfway through it. This cool guy's doing it for me.
I did. When I say enjoy it, it brought a lot of memories back, and it made me reflect
reliving,
on.
You'd be twitching.
Reflect on a lot of things, but it's an interesting read, and you don't pull any punches.
Well, I write like I talk, which means it's very Aussie. It's very, it's real. They wouldn't print a lot of it because they were just going, that's unpublishable. It's not in the public's interest to know that those things happen behind closed doors, and you know, so it was very well legaled, and some of the names were changed to protect the guilty. Yeah, but it's a good read. And then there's Underbelly, the Golden Mile 3, which you know, I sold the rights to it for that, and like I said, it's coming out in audio. So I've got a website. Yep. So if you look up Deborah Locke, you know, New South Wales Police, you'll find me.
And you're doing a lot of other stuff too, aren't you?
I am, and I've always been active with the autism stuff.
Yeah,
You know, I
yeah.
started up an autism group in the inner west when Hayes was young, which went for about 15 years, and I have a carers group now that I run once a month, and support people that are caring, and I always like to give back to the community. I'm working on a project at the moment in relation to women's issues and stuff. So it's like this talk's been looking at it from a women's stuff from a women's angle.
Look, you've gone through life making a difference, and it hasn't been an easy ride. But I love your the character that you can still sit here and laugh and find some goodness in the world.
And the world's a better place that I don't drink. Like, imagine if I'm like this sober.
Jesus.
Can you imagine me on the grog? Like, I was always everywhere I went, I'd be in trouble. Like, wherever the trouble was, I'd be. And they'd get me in the boat and they go, "We've got 10 people. They'll say you were there that day." And I'm going, "Don't remember. I was in blackout." Like, wherever there was trouble, I'm going, "There's a drink on." Yeah. Oh.
I don't get blackouts.
Alcohol's bad.
I just pass out. That's better. Just pass out instead of the blackout. Hey, I'm going to finish, but I just want to say that thank you for what you've done, and I say that with all genuine sincerity, that you made a difference in the policing, and I think you've made policing for people joining so much difference because you had the courage to stand up.
Call them out.
Your legacy is still carrying on to this day, so you should be very proud of yourself.
And you can't have fear.
Yeah,
you can't have fear. You just got to live your day and have the best day. And
I think that's the way to approach it, Deb. This is what I did.
Yeah. What are you going to do about it? Yeah, you got issues. Yeah, and so occasionally I'll get someone pull me up in an elevator or somewhere in a stairwell, and I'm not afraid.
No.
Yeah.
I
You can't be afraid. You can't live your life in fear. You just, and that's why I travel. That's why the bracelet. I travel a lot. Yeah. And I have a good time, and I party. I go to see a lot of live bands, and I love my music, and I have fun with my boy, and we have a great life, and stuff everyone else.
Good on you. Good on you. And that's the type of attitude you
got to
need
have.
to get through what's
Thanks, and thank you, Gary, for all you do too. This is great.
Appreciate
Mate,
it.
It's a bloody hard road.
Yeah, but you got to have a laugh.
You got to laugh.
Yeah. Okay. Good stuff.